And welcome back to Overrated. It's your co-host Fran. I am here with Babs. Unfortunately, she is under the weather, so she will not be talking this podcast. And I will be really. I'm joking. Hi, Babs. How are you doing?
Hello, Fran. I have husky tones, which could be good for singing. I was singing in the car on the way back to Brussels after a trip to Luxembourg, and I was singing along to Erasure with my darling papa, previous guest, Paula Minas George. And I could hit some low notes that I previously couldn't. So I was like, oh, this is fun. But yeah, the snotting and the coughing and the slight fever I had were not so fun. How have you been?
My back is absolutely killing me.
So no, we're back on this.
I think in the last episode we were discussing our ailments, and we're still ill. Sorry, guys, to be having to listen to these old music fans complain.
Well, Fran, I was at the osteopath 2 hours ago, but he was very happy with my progress. So yeah, my back has been okay for the last couple of weeks. I hope you found some nice professionals to help you out.
Well, I will follow this podcast with a hot bubble bath, guys. So you can imagine me floating in hot water.
DM for pictures of Fran and the bubbles. Oh yeah.
But we're not going to be discussing colds and bubble baths, unfortunately. We will be talking about music. So have you been listening to anything apart from Erasure?
Anything apart from Erasure? Yes, I have been listening to a Portuguese artist called Ana Lua Caiano, who I went to see in Luxembourg last week, and she blew me away. She mixes basically traditional Portuguese music with hip hop and electronica. And that I was like, this sounds right up my street. And it was. I went to see a performance in like a concert hall, and it was so interesting because it was her and her synths, and then she had this array of Portuguese instruments that I, ignorant Portuguese immigrant, had no idea about. So one was like a box with kind of felt like pebbles in it that she used as a drum. One was this toy thing that you pull, and it has little toys on it, but it makes little shaky sounds. I'm describing it so well.
We are getting some actions as well, guys. You can't see.
Yeah, you can't see the actions. But it was really impressive, and I think it was so the wrong atmosphere for that kind of concert because it was in a concert hall, and it was like a formal event. My dad said that I was the one who was the most dressed for that concert because I was dressed as per usual, quite informally, and everyone else was in suits. And the Grand Duke's son was there.
Oh, the
It
Grand
was that
Duke.
kind of concert. But yeah, it was absolutely incredible, and I thought that kind of audience, a lot of them non-Portuguese, would riot, but I think a lot of people enjoyed it. And yeah, if you like, as in Eurovision, we see that all the time, right? Traditional music blended with modern. If you like that kind of thing, I really recommend checking it out. And I, of course, will add it to the playlist for this episode. How about you, Fran?
I have been listening to all of the songs from 2023, but I can't mention them because that will be on a future podcast. So
of course,
I'm now scrolling through songs that I've liked but haven't made my playlist. So I have liked OMD's new album.
Did not know they had one. Did not know they were still going.
So I saw them a couple of years ago live, and yeah, they still got it. And the new album's really good. Speaking of 80s bands who randomly are still going, is Flock of Seagulls.
Wow.
Have a new track which is really good. They've even done an album with an orchestra, and I've got no idea where this budget came from because I have been listening to the Lemon Twigs, a bit of the Hives, Guided by Voices, Citizen, Duran Duran,
of course,
and Crosses. There we go.
Okay, a lot of songs to be added to our playlist. I like you're mentioning it now because we can't mention it later. I see what you're doing. And I approve. Although future Barbara doesn't approve because she has to make the playlist. But
future Barbara gets to pick what song out of those bands she wants to put on.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to put, I think, all songs from 2023. If I don't, call me out on it, guys. Email me.
But we aren't discussing 2023 artists today. Well, not really. We are discussing two singer-songwriters, I assume we're going to call them.
Right. Either art pop or avant pop.
Okay. Avant pop.
Avant pop. I would say because art pop still sounds like it could be kind of, I don't know, Talking Head styley. I'd say avant pop because it's a bit more out there.
Yeah.
Should we do that?
Yeah, these are people who can play it in an art gallery and it'd be fine.
Yeah. Their artistry is more than just the music, I would say.
So we have Bat for Lashes and Björk. And yeah, we shall be discussing Björk first. So shall we get into the Queen of Iceland?
Overrated.
Let's get into the Queen of Iceland, Björk Guðmundsdóttir.
Thank you for your pronunciation. I thought I'd skip that part.
Well, actually, if we're going to go into the way you pronounce it is Björk, it's not Björk, but hey, it's an English-speaking podcast. It's let's stick to that.
So we've been discussing Björk for a while, thinking, when are we going to pair her up? And we discussed maybe doing an Icelandic episode, but then we thought, okay, I don't know many Icelandic artists apart from Sigur Rós. I know like Mum and is it Emilia Torrini or something maybe?
Emiliana Torrini. Yeah.
But then I'm struggling, and I thought I know Björk-ish, but I'm not going to lie. I kind of crept away after the Greatest Hits in 2002. I have heard things since, but yeah. So I thought she has a big back catalogue. I can't spend too long on two different artists. So I thought, let's do an artist that we know a little bit more to make our lives easier. So that's why we paired her up with Backflashes, because I think that we both maybe know a little bit about her back catalogue.
We are nothing if not an efficient podcast, guys. But yes, I will say, and I'm sure you will mention it too, that I wish I had another few hours to research a bit more.
I think when I first discovered her, I discovered her when I first heard Björk back in
down the pub. Yep.
Back in 1994, probably, I was like, oh, I don't know what is happening here, because I was not into that sort of music. And I think I kind of got into her around 97 when I heard Bachelorette and Yoga was when I really got into Björk, and I bought the album, bought the CD singles. I always loved her videos. I think especially in the 90s, working with Michel Gondry and Chris Cunningham. She's had some of the greatest music videos, which is probably why she became so popular worldwide, I reckon. And yeah, I've always kind of wanted to see her live, but I don't know. Like when she does like a big concert, I don't know what she played. Is it just her latest work, or does she ever touch like debut post material? I've got no idea. And if she does, will she be doing it as per the CD, or will it now be completely rearranged to her current style? And I think when I heard her 2004 album, which is just voices, is when I thought and then occasionally we put on her new album at work, and nothing ever really fitted with me. So I've probably not listened to anything Björk for 15 years.
Wow.
And I didn't know if she's ever gone back to like maybe her classical music or electronic music, or if she's doing grime or who knows. I had no idea what she's doing. And obviously, randomly, as soon as we were going to do this podcast, she's suddenly become popular at the moment because she's got a new single out with, is it Rosalie? Is it
Rosalia,
who we featured previously.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so she's now trending again, not because of our podcast, obviously.
Not yet.
So I've been listening to that a couple of times. So yeah, I was interested to find out more about Björk, and have I been wrong to have been ignoring her for the past 15 years? Have I missed something amazing? So Babs, what's your journey for Björk?
So my journey for Björk is that she's someone who I feel has always been in pop culture, right? I think in 1990 was It's So Quiet was 95, was it?
Yeah.
So I would have been 8 years old for sure. That would have come up. And yeah, as Fran said to me before the recording, like, Björk's Wikipedia is so long, we don't even have time to get into it, and I'm just talking about, the swan dress as a moment. Her stalker, who I didn't know about that, but that was big news at the time, and how like that's strangely inspired some kind of weird body horror films. But anyway, so musically, it's It's So Quiet. We'll come to it later. That was huge, but that's maybe not totally representative of Björk's work, right? So I felt she kind of passed me by. She was someone who seemed always to be there, but I can't really remember seeing her music videos on TV because I didn't have music TV either. I think if I had, in the late 90s, I think I would have got into it a bit more. But I have seen her live. I've mentioned this before, but I saw her in a Vector. I've been saying Vector 2008 this whole time. Turns out it was Vector 2007. So correction to all previous podcasts. But I saw her at Rock Vector in 2007, and it was absolutely out of this world. So she had I think an all-female brass band where they all had their hair kind of tied up, in a kind of uniform style. And what was even more amazing, she had, I'm going to call them DJs. She had some people who had a table, and on the table there was a screen in the front, and they had these blocks that they would put on like an electronic thing on top of the table, and the blocks would make sounds, and if you twisted them and moved them around, it would make different sounds. So
cool.
I felt like I was in the future, right? And this was at a music festival, right? This wasn't one of her concerts, and I was like, whoa, okay, this is more than just your average music. I got into it, and one of the songs that I've picked is the song that really made it for me. But I think with Björk, with the way that we did this playlist this time was that actually, so we listened to her whole discography, we split it in two. So Fran listened to the first half, I listened to the second half. And it is sometimes hard work to listen to Björk because it's angular, it's edgy. Her voice sometimes sounds beautiful, sometimes sounds a bit jarring. It depends, I think, what mood you're in or what kind of album it is. I love the challenge, but to listen to those albums, while I was working or even in the evening, there was one evening where I was like, I can't go and listen to Fossa now. It's too much.
You may have noticed I took the easy option, guys.
So yeah, well, we'll see. Yeah, it wasn't let's say the easiest listening, but yeah, I really enjoyed kind of going through her discography and evaluating her properly, because I think I know. Did you have her greatest hits?
Yeah, so I've got a greatest hits, and I have Homogenic, and that's all I already own. I mean, I haven't even really listened to the Sugar Cubes. How about you?
Yeah, Sugar Cubes, I know the big hit that I can't remember.
Birthday, is it?
Yeah, and that's it.
And as per usual, I watched a documentary on her, so I found out that we haven't listened to the whole discography because she had an album in like 1977. So
yeah, I also full disclosure, I also didn't listen to her whole discography because I had one more album to go. But the thing is, I had to pick 5 songs to listen to 6 albums, so I didn't listen to Fossa. Sorry, guys, but that's a 2022 album. I'm sure we'll come back to it. But so I listened to Medalla, Volta, Biophilia, Volnicura, and Utopia. And Fran listened to
Debut, Pose, Homogenic, Selma songs, and the one is with the mini beats. That's the ticket. Thank you.
Yeah, Vespertine. I had to look it up just now.
I've not listened to her collaborations, really, with like trip hop, and I didn't know that she wrote Bedtime Story with Madonna. That was interesting reading.
I did not know that either. I would not make that.
No, but I. So so we've done our best. If I'm sure there's a dedicated Björk podcast out there for the hardcore.
There must be.
This is just 2 music fans' opinion on Björk.
Let's do it. Let's go.
So we begin in 1993.
Set the scene, Fran. Set the scene. I'm like this.
I was in year 8. I had curtains, baggy trousers. I was going to school discos. I was enjoying The Prodigy on MTV, and then suddenly on MTV there's a lady with interesting hair and egg action in videos with dots over her eyebrows, I believe, singing Venus as a boy. And I remember this is different. So I think around that time, I think that and Big Time Sensuality got played more than anything else around that time. Dance music was popular back in those days. And I think, she moved over specifically to England to work with like, is it Graham's like from 808 State? And then obviously she worked with Nelly Hooper. And so this is, I didn't realize how sexual this song was.
Me neither.
So it sounds quite, quite nursery rhyming, a bit cutie, really. And then it's about, it's got naughty words that Babs might go further into. But it's got those beautiful Indian strings. It's got like a weird bottle noise that apparently she just had on a demo and they included it. And I think it's weird because like looking at it now, it just seems like a normal pop song. But I remember like back then, it seemed so alien and so what the fuck is this? Like this isn't Kylie Minogue. This is so different. But now, like if you're talking about Björk, this is probably her most straight edge song. It's like, but at the time it was like, whoa, what on earth is this happening here? And it's just strange how how the musical climate has changed so much that this is now the average pop song. I assume, especially if like the electronic production. So I'm a fan. I've grown up into liking Björk more than I did when I was 12 years old. How about you, Babs?
Can I ask though, Frank, because you didn't put the normal Venus as a Boy, you put the Mick Hucknall Dream Mix into the playlist. Was that a mistake? Or
I was just scrolling through Spotify and this just came up. Yeah, I did notice it said Mick Hucknall, but I've been listening to the video all day and it seems to be the exact same as the
no,
music.
it's not.
No, so
It's not the same.
what's different between that and the music video?
So the original version, actually, I prefer the Mick Hucknall version to the original version.
Hey, guys, to be fair, it's not called the Mick Hucknall version. It's called the Dream Mix.
Sorry, it's called the Dream Mix.
If it was called the Mick Hucknall version, that'd be amazing.
Yes, but that's why I was like, for that to be the first song on your playlist to say Björk, Mick Hucknall, and Gota Yoshiki, who was also in Slim Red, I was like, okay, Fran's really making a statement here. The remix smooths it out a little bit, I would say. It makes it a bit funkier because I would maybe disagree that it sounds like normal pop now, just because I didn't get into it immediately. So I imagine that, 12-year-old Fran also wouldn't have got into it immediately. I still think it sounds way ahead of its time, which is what Björk is. This one took me a few listens, but I think actually watching it with the video with her making the eggs charmed me to it a bit more. And yeah, I was really interested to see her perving over some eggs, and it turns out it's based on one of her favorite books, which I quote, at one point a girl, Simone, uses boiled eggs for sexual stimulation, and apparently she had this whole discussion with the director of the music video, Sophie Muller, I think.
Yes.
Who was like, so Sophie Muller was like, well, yeah, fried eggs, right? And Björk's like, no, boiled eggs. Fried eggs are not going to be sexy, but hey, I think both are in the video, so whatever gets you off.
I have never had any sex fun with a fried egg, but if you guys have, write in.
Vegans, sorry.
But I think the chorus is still quite catchy, isn't it? I believe the Venus to a boy.
Yes, but I guess there's a lot of weird instrumentation, weird for pop. This is the thing. I think Björk is so avant-garde, to go back to that it's like, oh, this is normal Björk, because there's way more impenetrable Björk coming up, especially from I think my selections.
But yeah, and looking at her album sales, I was surprised. This is her biggest album. I think this sold over 5 million. I think like each album she dropped down. I thought she would have like maybe peaked around the late 90s, but no, it keeps dropping down per album, bizarrely.
So debut sold more than post.
Yeah, it's like wow. I think it's like 5.5 million. Then post was like 4. Then it gets to like 3,
but
then 1. Then yeah.
The little I read about her, wasn't she already big in the US with the Sugar Cubes, to the point where they had a song on Saturday Night Live where it was just her singing and not the band? So I guess maybe the hype came from there.
I don't know, but like I said, I remember Big Time Sensuality was a massive song, and I assume, but that must have been big in clubs around the world. But yeah, you think that because of the song we're going to discuss in a minute, that the post would be her biggest seller. But yeah,
that is surprising.
Second song we're going to be talking about is a collaboration with David Arnold and Yara Wobble for the film Young Americans with Play Dead, which I think is the closest you'll get to a Bond anthem without being a Bond anthem. And it's 100%. And obviously David Arnold then took over from John Barry to be the James Bond composer the year after this. So
makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if I can do it, Dave, because the film is pretty rubbish, and this is easily the best thing about the film. In the UK, this was used for an airline, and it is hard to not see the advert every time you hear those lush strings come in. If people say that she can't sing, then listen to this, because her voice is absolutely beautiful. As some people who are younger than me would say, it has all the feels. Is that the phrase? I feel like a granddad. Yeah, it has all the feels. Yeah, I think this is absolutely beautiful. I love Yara Wobble's bass line that comes in and out as well. And yeah, for me, it's this and U2 have done the best Bond themes without being Bond themes. But are you a fan of Play Dead, Barbara?
I love this song, and I thought I didn't know it from looking at the title, and then it started and I was like, oh, that one. And I was thinking, how on earth do I know this song? And I saw that it was in a Vauxhall advert as well, or something like that.
Okay.
It was really, really familiar to me, which was very strange. And yeah, I wrote, this is a trip hop Bond song. When the bass comes into its own and Björk totally lets go and is singing, it's mesmerizing. I found this quite an addictive song. I couldn't just listen to it once or twice. Maybe it's because it's one of those that I've only ever probably heard in snatches or on the radio every now and again, and to be able to kind of listen over and over again was lovely. So thank you, Fran. And in the music video, it was really weird again, having We've discussed Mick Hucknall in in the first song. Here, Björk in the music video, it's Craig Kelly and Thandie Newton who are kind of snogging in the music video, because it is from this film Young Americans that they're in, that I haven't seen. Craig Kelly looking fit as, can I just say? I mean, obviously Björk did live in England for a while, dated people like Tricky and Goldie and stuff like that, and other men with more than one name. But I really love this, and would have never, because I think I only knew the strings, not the vocals. I would have never said this was Björk in a million years.
I think it's on her best of, which is interesting. Because the song we're going to discuss next isn't on her best of, famously. It's like the old REM syndrome.
What I was going to say, yeah.
So yes, next we have "Oh So Quiet" from post 1995, probably her most well-known song. Obviously it's like a 1940s random musical song. Apparently she used to hear this on the tour bus and used to joke about it, and then she just did a cover.
It's a cover. I didn't know it was a cover.
Yeah, it's from a 1940s musical. I think it's like an obscure musical. Because I always thought, what the fuck is happening here? Because it just seems so unlike Björk. But then you find out, okay. The video is brilliant. The Spike Jonze music video, I think that kind of makes the song. But as someone who fucking hates whispering, then I hated this the first time I heard it.
This is your room 101.
I find everything about it so annoying for me. I'm not Mr. Razzmatazz. I'm not into the old musicals.
Was it the roar of the grease paint, the smell of the whatever it was? Yeah, from the covers episode.
I always find that weird when people say, "Oh, I really love that. I love "Oh So Quiet." So I was happy when it wasn't on the greatest hits. And she says herself, it's not my song. Like it's quite annoying for a songwriter to have your most famous song is the only song you never wrote. I guess we mentioned that a bit with Simple Minds in the covers episode as well. But so for me, it's a thumbs down. But I thought I had to include it because obviously, it's so much part of her career, really. So, Babs, are you a big fan of "Oh So Quiet"?
I'm glad you included it because, for me, this is the quintessential overrated Björk song. As in, this is a song that many people will only know her for this. Didn't even know it was a cover. The only thing that I would say is trademark Björk is the fact that she switches between quiet and loud, or high and low, which she does, effortlessly. I don't mind this song. I think it's fine, but it is overplayed. It's just, in a wedding, in a school disco, etc., etc. I've heard it too many times, and I think in a musical context, actually, that does make sense. Like you say with the music video, when you can visually see it. But I didn't actually even listen to it because I was like, I know what it sounds like. I've heard it a million times. Let's just have a discussion about it.
I love to see this played at a school disco. I don't know who's dancing.
I'm pretty sure. Really? I'm pretty sure. Like this was what 1995. That would have been. I was like 8 years old.
Oh,
I would have totally been in my school disco.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, you would have been in the club.
I was slamming some Jägermeisters listening to "Oh So Quiet." So next to my second favorite Björk song, which is "Bachelorette," which is the first single I purchased. So 1997, and again, Misha Gondry music video is absolutely insanely amazing. It's got that beautiful waltz piano, dum 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 dum, and then the strings come in and raise up, and it's like this beautiful melody. And at the end, as it's Björk, you then suddenly have animal squawks happening in the background and weird high notes, and I'm pretty sure she's not speaking English at the end when she's going because when you're looking at Spotify, it doesn't even mention lyrics. I think she's just
I hadn't even paid attention, to be honest.
Mumbling. But then I watched the documentary and Tom York says the one thing he likes about Björk is she's not afraid of not saying words. Like for a singer, sometimes words can get in the way of the music, and with her,
how interesting.
She's like she will just sing what she thinks fits with the song. And sometimes he does speak Icelandic, but like Jonsi from Sigaros, he does a similar thing. He just makes up his own language, and it works great. And I think on quite a lot of her songs, I've always kind of in my head planted an English word there, but it is just her making a sound that fits that part of the song. So I absolutely adore this song. I've listened to it maybe 5 times today. How about yourself?
Yes, I also love this song. I also think we're back in James Bond territory here. To be honest, I think this would work. And before before any of this, if you tell me like, oh, Björk would be a great person to do a blonde thing, I'd be like, are you mad? But we've had 2 examples from your playlist that she absolutely can. I'd also never seen the music video. Exquisite, like one of the best music videos of all time.
Details after details, really.
Detail after detail, and it's called the Drosh effect or something like that, because it's like a picture within a picture.
Yes.
And the way, like, it's gorgeous as you're watching it, and then when you realize what the ending is, it becomes clear. You're like, oh, this is, yeah, it's a short film. I adored it. And yeah, so this was an album that I had listened to because I'd saved Yoga and Pluto from it. I hadn't saved Bachelorette, and I don't know why, because it's really, really good. And the accordion at the end, after all those strings and piano, is so moving. I mean, you know, we've talked about how in some cases I don't like an accordion hold steady. Here, it's absolutely gorgeous. After this expansive, ethereal song, to just have this quiet accordion at the end. So yeah, no, hats off.
Underrated.
So moving along to new territory for me, because I have not seen Dancer in the Dark because it sounds really fucking depressing
and accusations.
So this is Selma songs, which are basically the songs that she wrote for it before then being asked to also be the star of the film. And obviously she won a best actor in the Cannes Film Festival, and she said that she refused to act again after her experience. But yeah, this was brand new to me. It's got like an industrial train kind of backing track. Then there's like a soothing, cooed vocals. I love the build, and then you get the Björk vocal line and delivery. Again, it's kind of like we mentioned in the previous songs. She's got this great classical voice. For me, it's made my breakfast very dramatic, because I listened to this while I was making breakfast in the morning, and who knew that the soundtrack to Dance in the Dark is perfect for making breakfast in the morning. So yeah, I thought, yeah, I'm surprised I spent this long without listening to the soundtrack. Maybe because I knew the film was depressing. I assumed the music was as well, and I think I knew the duet with Tom York from
I have that saved as well.
I don't think I've ever listened to anything else. So I was kind of surprised about how uplifting the song was. What are your thoughts? Oh, this is by the way, New World, by the way.
New World from some songs. So I think this was maybe my, well, you know, it's also quite aside, my least favorite from the playlist, because I found it somehow a little bit bland at the beginning. I think coming after Bachelorette and Play Dead as well, I listened to it and I was like, okay, so this is one that's not so good. But when it goes towards the end and the drums come in, I was like, whoa, hang on, this is suddenly built to what I really like. And I was like, okay, let me listen to it again. But the beginning just bores me too much for me to get on board.
I will say that, like, maybe because I've not seen it with the visuals, it might be worth to see how it works in the film.
That's exactly what I wrote. Yeah. I think it's definitely atmospheric, but because it's not as dramatic maybe as Bachelorette or Play Dead, it didn't quite get it for me. And I mean, because this was specifically written for a film, so maybe it came in a scene that was already imagined. So yeah.
Interesting, but the one time she's actually in a film is the least dramatic version.
But yeah, reading about, I mean, I knew about the accusations, and then I went to read about them again, and it's like, it just sounds like a miserable, absolutely miserable experience. Bless her.
Yeah, he's an interesting man, isn't he?
He is.
So moving on to, for me, a depressing song. So what's your next? What's your first pick?
So my first pick, we're now at Medulla, the album, or Medulla. Where is the Line? And yeah, with almost all of the albums, I found it really tricky to pick which song to put forward to you, because yeah, it's that thing of, I imagine you didn't know any of them, right? Any of the songs I picked.
I must have, because obviously the year before this was the greatest hits. There's no way in hell I wouldn't have tried it, but I got a feeling I might have read about the album beforehand and how it has no instruments, and I went from, oh no.
I didn't realize this song had no instruments until doing it. So yeah, Where is the Line? I've written most of the album is entirely a cappella, but Future Heads, this ain't, in reference to our covers episode. I think this song is addictive once again. I have had Where is the Line in my head over and over and over again. it was really interesting to read about how she wrote it and how like she worked with a beatboxer. And she said that she was so happy when she heard the first playthrough that she silently cried, and that Mike Patton from Faith No More is also in this song. And, you know, for me, reading the lyrics, I'm like, this could be about you being annoyed at anyone, but apparently it is Björk attacking her younger brother for being greedy and unreliable.
Sibling rivalry. I had no idea she even had any siblings. I don't think I've ever heard of her mentioned.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I'm like, it was on Wikipedia. I clicked the link and there was a Stereogum interview. I didn't read the Stereogum interview, but guys, limited time.
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit too much. Like, I forgot when I heard this that it was all voices, and I put down, have they like sampled the frog chorus with the bowl until I found out it's a throat singer. I assume is what's happening there.
Well, there's an Icelandic choir
in
there, I think. Yeah,
but yeah, it's a lot of, but it's like 6.5 minutes as well. It's that's why you get stuck in your head.
But did it not get drilled? This is it. I think.
But is that good?
But you have to be in the mood. I agree. You have to be in the mood, because if it gets you on the wrong time, you're going to be like, "Shut up! My line is here, Björk."
I think also like, because obviously I had maybe this like lush melodic songs previously, to go from like Bachelor and Play Dead to this is like, oh god, I need to like to reset my head before before I
It's almost like two different playlists from two different artists. I think our playlists completely different.
Yeah, and in some ways it reminds you a bit like of David Strofen from Japan, because he has gone in kind of like interesting directions, and he says, you know, my music is played for galleries and museums. Like, he doesn't even
he says that.
He says it doesn't even belong on stage. So I'm like, oh, thank you, because I'm then listening as hard as I can as an old fan, thinking there must be something in here for me to like. But yeah, and I think with Björk, in some ways, like, imagine if this was her debut album. Like, unfortunately, it wouldn't get any play. And I think you're very privileged to be able to do this kind of music. You know, I don't know if it's a cynical thing. Obviously, her first album had some house music. It was very much trip hop. It was very much in the now. So obviously, it's going to get a lot of press. Did she always want to do this sort of music, but didn't feel like she could because it's too early in her career, or has she tired of that more popular music and dance music, and then this was like what she wanted to do next? I don't know. It's a bit like Radiohead, isn't it? No, Radiohead, obviously, when it started off, that's more of a normal rock band. Did they always want to do more ambient electronic music? Or
yeah, I mean, I remember reading on the Wikipedia that this album was written in response a little bit to like the mad patriotism that happened after 9/11 in the US. And she said that it was really weird for her as a foreigner living there, because there was just like a million American flags everywhere. So is it that thing of just like, she wants to strip it down because she's known for so much complex electronic stuff? Does she want to prove that just with voices she can have the same effect? But actually, I'm on Wikipedia now, and there's a quote from her saying, everyone was going, oh, she's making a vocal album. It'll be a horrible Yoko Ono experience. But I wanted to show that a vocal album doesn't have to be for the chosen few. It was just about working with the instrument I know best, my voice. So there's your answer.
I wonder, you know, we touched on the stalking incident. You know, did that popularity mean she wanted to step back a bit more, you know, and make something
weird?
Because it, you know, like for herself a little bit more. So it makes sense. And yeah, I think she kept changing countries, didn't she, with each album? I think Bachelor was in Spain. You said this was in
Bachelor was in Spain because I think of because of the stalker, because I think her drummer offered her his apartment in Spain because she wanted to initially record it. Because that was 97, right? That happened.
Yeah. And then was around that time was the incident when she beat up the
paparazzi.
That was everywhere. So yeah, maybe she thought, I don't want to be a massive pop star anymore, you know.
I mean, but this is 2004, right? So it is later. I don't know. I think that's it's what she says, right? At first, like, can I make an album just with voices? And then she got, you know, people involved, because there's Mike Patton, there's also Tanya Tagaq as well, Robert Wyatt. Yeah. So yeah. And it says here, you know, I think one thing that I was like, well, duh, of course you should have realized this, but Björk is modern classical music, right? Like, and I think if you go into Björk just expecting pop, especially in the latter half of her career, that's a mistake. And I think maybe that's why even music fans like us sometimes start listening, we're like, oh God, no, I can't do this, because you are expecting another Play Dead or something like that. But I really think this is music that, you have to have the patience, because it is complex music. And I really think it is, I prepared for this playlist kind of in front of a computer or while doing other things. But actually, I wish I'd had the time to kind of sit down with headphones, eyes closed to experience it. So my next pick is Declare Independence from Volta. So this is the song that got me into Björk. This is the song that she closed the set with at Werchter. And, you know, when she says, raise your flag, flags all raised up with the people in the brass band. It was produced by Mark Bell, who I was reading about, who I'm guessing you know from Depeche Mode as well, who died ages ago, like in 2014. Wow. And I mean, watching this live was an experience, as you can imagine, because it's a very kind of chanty, you know, call to action song. I just love how it doesn't let up. Like those synths at the beginning are not happy synths. And it just, you know, not only do they continue, but then you have some drums and Björk shouting, go to the top of your highest mountain.
Wasn't it going to be an instrumental for a long time?
Yes, it was going to, which is crazy when you think about it, because the lyrics are so in your face. You can't really escape what it, you know, it's not one where you have to think about it too much. But that's what I've also liked about this song, because I feel like it could go either way. Like, obviously, it reads as a rallying call against discrimination. She talks about damn colonists, make your own currency, raise your own flag. But, you know, that could go down the nationalistic, you know, unpleasant route as well.
It is also a bit like, I don't know, first year university, I just read something about politics and the patriarchy. Yeah. Oh, that's bad. Flags are bad. Currency's bad. I'm like, okay.
To be fair, Iceland was colonized by Denmark until 1944.
Yeah, I know, and Iceland colonized the UK. It's all.
Oh yeah, it did. An island. Yeah. So I never really kind of read into this song, but she said that she dedicated it to people from the Faroe Islands and Greenland, which obviously are the subjects of Denmark. And yeah, she sang it in China and people chanted Tibet and people weren't happy. And in Serbia, she talked about Kosovo and people weren't happy. So I'm like, do you know what? Like, I do hear you on the whole, like, first year of university, but I'm like, she is using it for political causes that she believes in and getting into trouble for it. So good for her.
I remember this has a really great visual, because I was working in a record store when it came out, and I'm thinking, wow, I really love that visual. And we put it on, and we were giggling to the lyrics of the song when we put it on. So maybe that's why I think this is probably the last album I've listened to before the podcast. But so yeah, I can't remember anything else apart from this one song.
I think you would like Earth Intruders, which is co-produced by Timbaland.
Yeah, I read that today. It's like, what the fuck? He worked at Björk and Duran Duran.
Like, he begged to work with Björk. I remember reading about this at the time, where it was like, she was like, really? And he's like, no, I love you.
And then, I said, oh, yeah. And she said, oh, if this won't be a hip hop album, but we can find where we cross paths musically. And I think, it was like tribal rhythms as a kind of like.
Yeah, honestly, Earth Intruders. Go and listen to it. It's really, really good song.
Tell me more about the live concert. So what did she play? Was it just this album or?
So I've got Setlist FM. Thank you very much. So she did play stuff from this album, but she also played All Is Full of Love. She played cool. Bachelorette, Army of Me. Maybe that's where I heard it the first time. Hyper Ballad and Pluto as well. So no, it wasn't just
what's there strings stuff apart from the brass then on stage, because you need strings.
I honestly can't remember. Like, it was such a long time ago. It was such a long time ago. But the thing is, like, what I remember is having like the DJs and the brass band. So I think any effects would have been made by the DJs.
Moving on to your next pick, perhaps.
My next pick, perhaps the most inaccessible, I don't know. This is Hollow from Biophilia. So I heard this album for the first time yesterday. I did enjoy it. I could have picked many songs. I went for this one because I was like, oh, this is Björk modern classical music vibes.
Yeah.
And I've listened to it 3 or 4 times. I still don't know how I feel about this song, because I think there's flashes of genius. The way it changes constantly, you're always paying attention. I really like the harmonies. I really like when the dubstep section comes in randomly, but sometimes the organ sounds can be a little bit annoying. Like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I would be curious to hear what you thought.
Yes, I watched the music video, and I found out that.
Oh, I couldn't find a music video. Oh, damn it! Yeah.
It's she did a thing with Apple. This is also interesting for Björk, working with these big companies. And
well, this is the app album, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think she did she's one of the first people to do one of those DNA tests, and it's around that. And the music video is like someone's done a computerized version of her DNA and her chromosomes, like completely zoomed in real time. It's very well. It's Björk. It makes sense, but and it's like a creepy story time soundtrack.
Yeah,
it's got like those echoey weird vocals and some sort of haunting pipe work. I'm never too sure what instruments.
Pipes. That's what it is. Yeah, I think pipes. You're right.
Yeah, she likes pipes. She likes a flute, doesn't she?
She loves the flute. We'll be coming to that in a bit.
It's a soundtrack to a nightmare. Then suddenly the stabbing organs come in, and we're in the world of Psycho. But whilst listening to this, I'm looking at her DNA. It's all rather strange to the senses. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, just reading some of the comments and people saying this is the most beautiful DNA I've ever seen.
Well, like, how much DNA have you seen?
What does that mean? But yeah, yeah, some of the comments on her YouTube. But Björk fans are highly opinionated,
passionate.
Well, yeah, what is also quite I did find interesting going through the music videos is that the later we get, the less English comments there are. So I was having to do a lot of translate what's like at this period. So I don't know if that means that she's not as popular in like
in English world.
Yeah. And now she's bigger in Latin and French world because I barely found any.
I saw a lot of Portuguese comments.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, I found that quite interesting. Maybe she hasn't been as popular in UK and USA since.
I also think, to be honest, I mean, we kind of been doing it. She gets poked fun at a lot because she's so out there and she's so kind of unapologetic. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna wear a mask made out of hair. All right, I'm gonna put sparks and like little feathers on my head and be a bronze statue and have extended legs. And I think it is very easy to make fun of that, and also because it's weird and you're like, what? But you've got to hand it to her. Like, she doesn't compromise and she's always shifting.
Yeah, because like in the Oscars when she wore the swan dress, to me that was like it made sense, but I didn't realize that freaked out all of America.
But I think she also has a sense of humor. Like, and I think a lot of people don't realize that because it's like serious avant-garde music, but it's like, no, she definitely does that. Like, someone without a sense of humor would not have worn that swan. You know, she became famous so young that I'm sure that she has a bit of a defensive side when it comes to the press, also because she gets so annoyed as has Grimes of like people constantly attributing the producers that she works with as the composers, and she's like, this has been happening for, even with Volnikura, the one she did with Arca. She's just like, Arca had to be like, for fuck's sake, like, stop saying that I've come up with this, you know. So, and that is what, 20, 30, 40 years into her career. So
yeah, I think when she did debut, she had like songs going back to when she was like 9 years old. She's been keeping like an archive of like songs for her first solo album. So it's insane like how much music she's been gathering over the past 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I read as well that like she was classically trained, which makes sense, but she found it too restrictive.
Yeah, because she said like it took her until she was like 30 when she did like Bachelorette for her to be able to do classical music again. Because it's just so not hurt by it, but I think it's just when you get forced into doing something as a kid.
It's a conservative world. Like, you know, I learnt the violin until I was 18, and I like to go to the odd classical music concert. But even talking, you know, the concert that I went to at the beginning that I was talking about at the episode in this concert hall, I find it so strange that with classical music, it's like you're not meant to show emotion. You are sitting down. You're not meant to report. It's so unnatural. And yeah, when classical music can move you just as much as pop or rock music. But did you like Hollow, or are you a bit like I also don't know how I feel?
So obviously going through your 5 tracks, that was the first track that sounded a bit more like the Björk I imagined would sound like, if that makes sense. The similarities to her previous work more than like the previous 2 songs, I think, for me. Similar to the next song you're going to discuss.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We're so in sync. So yeah, my next pick is a Lion song from Volnikura, and yeah, I could have picked so many songs, but this song stuck out to me immediately because of the really vulnerable lyrics at the beginning when the strings come in and she says, maybe he will come out of this loving me. Ooh, you feel it. And that was before realizing that this album was a breakup album from her partner Matthew Barney, and that she wrote this 5 months before they broke up as well. So this was written while the relationship was breaking down. That really kind of makes it even more poignant. It's 6 minutes long. I don't feel it. I love how it goes. I've written modern Radioheady towards the end, percussion wise. It sounds very modern Phil Selway. I've loved the Imogen Heap effects on her voice. The lyrics are beautiful. I love everything about this song. Do you?
Well, yeah, I'd never heard this before. I mean, I don't. Why is it called Lion Song? I couldn't find a reason, but
I did not research that deeply.
But I love a flowered gimp outfit.
So you saw the video.
Yeah, that is one of the sad things about Björk's modern career. She is loving CGI a bit too much for me, and I'm not a big fan of over CGI sort of videos. I kind of prefer her more imaginative ones from the 90s, but that aside, I put down more 90s vibe. We're talking trip hop, strings, vocal effects. It's long, but not annoyingly long. Yeah, again, listen to her vocals. Sometimes I think she is sort of doing like, I'm gonna say mumblecore, but when she is just using her voice rather than actually saying lyrics. Then I didn't know that she had just gone through a divorce. I didn't know who Matthew Barney was, to be fair.
I didn't know either before this, this preparation.
I was thinking about, is this an album for me to maybe go back to first after? Maybe have you heard anything else from this album?
Yeah, I've heard all the all the albums. I've heard them, but how much have I retained is the question. Because,
so is there anything? Yeah. Is it this kind of vibe the entire album, or is this the most?
Yes, there is that vibe. And if you wanted to go to another song, let's go to the first song, Stone Milker.
Stone Milker. Okay, so moving on to your final pick.
Moving on to my final pick, it's Utopia, which she did with Arca, who also produced this album.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked this in part because I thought it would be a nice tonic for you, Fran, after all those quite intense songs. It is a fluty and bird soundy. I do find this one, maybe my least favorite from my own list, because I think the beginning goes on for a little bit too long. But when Björk's vocals come in, her high falsetto is beautiful. And did you watch the video for this one?
Yeah, I did. And hence why I said she loves her CGI these days, doesn't she?
Yeah, because there was a comment which was like, how much CGI do you want, Björk? Answer, yes. And there were some other great comments. The top two were, I'm so glad computer-generated graphics became advanced enough to handle recreating what goes on in Björk's mind. And the second one was, finally, we are getting to see Björk's home planet.
Don't know, I think Iceland can look pretty interesting sometimes.
Absolutely.
So I not heard of it before. I put down it's got some tranquil flutes when we're floating above Björk's paradise, whatever. And apparently, it's pink and spectacular.
Someone commented that this is the shade of pink they put in prisons because it calms people down. I don't know the scientific accuracy of that, but there we go.
One comment I liked was like, this is the mellow part before a metal track kicks in, but they forgot to record the guitar. But and I put down, welcome back, the Björk I thought had gone. And then she says this is called folkotronica, is what genre they're calling it. I had not heard of Arca either until I was reading up about
I'm glad that you hadn't, because I have heard she's someone I've dipped in and out of over the years. One of those that I keep, dipping in, saving a couple songs, leaving, coming back. And I was like, well, now is the time to explore them. I really recommend, if you want to start with Broke Up. It's a good place to start.
Björk was saying that she felt a bit nervous about working with Arca because she knew she was a fan. And she didn't want to work with someone who's a fan, but then it became like shorthand because she can mention like a beat from like an album, and then she instantly knew what that was, and so that's quite useful.
And Arca's Venezuelan, and apparently, like you were saying, Björk has some, notoriety. That sounds bad. Björk is famous in Latin America, and I read that too, where she was like, "Can you do it like this?" And Arca would be like, "Oh, do you mean the third beat from the fifth song from your second album?" And she'd be like, "Yes, you know my music better than I would." And I read as well that I think she wanted Arca involved in the latest album, Fossera, but because of the lockdown, they couldn't work physically together, so she didn't.
And so we mentioned her latest single then.
Yeah, so Björk has done a single with Rosalia, which is about the fish farming in Iceland, if I understand correctly. I think it's a very kind of natural collaboration of, two artists who, probably, again, inspired by traditional music from their homelands, but melding genres in all sorts of directions. I'm not a huge fan of the song, I have to say, at least on the first few listens, but I do think their voices work really well together, which when you have two quite unique voices, especially Björk's, you wouldn't know how that would work out, but it does, I think.
I think I read that it's a song that Björk wrote a long time ago.
Yes, I also read that.
But I like, it's got a catchy kind of nurture rhyme chorus, and I thought, is that on purpose so that it sticks in your mind? So then the whole fishing discussion isn't lost. Like but that's sticking in your mind, and you might keep you thinking about what it's thinking about a little bit more. Is it a cynical way for that? So is Björk overrated? I
really don't think so. I would almost even argue she's underrated, which might shock you, because I think both artists that we're putting forward today really made me confront maybe some internalized misogyny with Björk. As I mentioned, she was a bit of a figure of ridicule. She was someone who was like a bit weird and out there. And because of all that, And because of some of the songs that I listened to, they just weren't, very accessible. I kind of dismissed her for a very, very long time. And I'm really sad that I did because, on this list, there's this a list of 10 songs. Okay, I did pick 5 of them. But there's not one song I hate. I find 1 or 2 blander than the others. And I think when people think of Björk, they think of It's So So Quiet or a few other ones, not so much of the later ones, and not Volta, which if you want an accessible album, it's there. So at the beginning I was like, no, she's definitely rated, but I'm like, no, actually, I do think she's underrated because I just don't think there's anyone else out there like her. And listening to her like this and her full discography, you realize how many people she's influenced, especially in the electronic world as well. People where you're like, oh, I thought that was, it's a bit like when we had Primal Scream and saw them influencing others. So, maybe not super underrated because obviously she's famous, but is she famous for her music? No, I think she's famous for her for what she looks like or her weird voice much more. So thank you, Fran, for suggesting this as a topic because I would now argue in some cases Björk is underrated.
So she's got what, 3 million
3.7
a month?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was thinking, is that fair? I was trying to, in my head, I was thinking, how I think maybe for us, because we are of a certain age, to us, she's a big artist because we grew up with her being a big artist. It would be interesting to someone who was born this century if they can name one Björk song. So it would be nice to find out.
It's funny you say that because one of the comments that I saw on the Rosalia Björk song video was, oh, it's thanks to Rosalia that I got into Björk because Rosalia mentions her all the time in interviews as being one of her influences. So I guess it depends how many of the younger pop stars are talking about Björk as an influence to do that. Yeah.
So the 90s, she's not overrated or underrated. I think she earned her success. And since the 90s, you don't really hear her. So I can't say she's overrated because it's not as if I'm being forced to listen to Björk every time I put on the TV or the radio.
You're not listening to the hollow years.
So yeah, so I think I wouldn't say she's overrated. I wouldn't say she's underrated. Again, it's hard for me to say that because to me, she's a big name because I grew up with her music. So, but yeah, I looking at her sales, I think her last album sold 7,000.
That's it.
I know.
It's crazy.
But who's playing Björk? I don't know. So,
but I feel like Musos, right? Musos, music.
But yeah, I think she's got a very loyal following, and that'll keep her going. But so yeah, in that case, she's not overrated because I think these days, apart from her loyal fan base, I don't know how many new listeners she picks up really.
Well, what's interesting is so the song with Rosalia has been out for 9 days. It's had 2.6 million views. So I wonder if this is the new era for Björk. Let's hope so, because honestly, guys, I'm saying this, as someone who, came into this thinking I might think that Björk was overrated, this exercise, this playlist totally changed my mind.
That's the end of part 1.
Do you like music and do you like podcasts? Chances are you like music podcasts. Take this one for example, Pick a Disc. I'm Matt Latham, and every fortnight a guest comes on to Pick a Disc to talk about an album for any reason that they want to. We'll talk about the album as a whole, we talk about the songs, we talk about any personal stories about the album, and if they've ever seen the band live, and all sorts of other crazy tangents. And if at any point any of that made you want to listen to Pick a Disc, then you can find us on your podcast apps of choice or on the Facebooks and Twitters and Instagram under Pick a Disc. We're also on the We Made This Podcast Network on WeMadeThisNetwork.com and on Twitter at we_made_this. Goodbye.
Underrated.
So welcome back to part 2, and we are going into our underrated choice, and we have matched Björk with Bat for Lashes, aka Natasha Khan from the UK, and we're just saying that her dad is a famous Pakistani squash player from a legacy of squash players.
Yeah.
I didn't know that till today.
Yeah, I didn't know that until researching Hannah, how she was saying that she was very inspired by like the crowd at squash matches, like the ritual and the community of it. Which is quite how many artists have been inspired by squash?
Yes, exactly. But I think that I do have a lot in common with her music wise because she has grown up loving basically I think all my favorite bands, which does help. So yeah, I first got into Bat Flashes on her second album. The first album completely passed me by. I think I remember the name being nominated for a Mercury Prize, maybe, but I don't remember any songs. So for me, the first song I heard was Daniel. And I thought, oh, this sounds a little bit like Tanga of a Night, Fleetwood Mac mixed with The Cure, if that makes sense. And I thought, oh, this sounds good. So I got into that second album first, and then I saw her live in Portsmouth with Charlotte Hathaway in the band. And I'm thinking, is that? I kept thinking that for the first half of the concert, is that? And oh yeah, it was. And I was like surprised randomly if she's now playing in the backing band, because to me she's like the lead guitar player of Ash, and now she's playing second fiddle to a new artist. I thought it was interesting. And yeah, I've been following her career slightly. I dabble with songs. I don't think I've ever really listened to many of her albums in full. I think I listened to a few singles here and there, and I've not seen her since 2010, I guess that was. So I thought it'd be another chance to dip into her back catalogue. And yeah, I now think she's now living in America. I think she moved to America maybe 2017. Previously she lived in Brighton and London. I think previously she was also working as a nursery school teacher whilst doing music in Brighton. So yeah, I guess she was probably started to get popular maybe like 27, 20, so she's a little bit older than most other first-time pop stars. So yeah, I've always found her an interesting singer-songwriter. She covers a lot of my favorite artists. She collaborates with a lot of people I love. She's got, like Björk, really interesting videos. She's got a perfectly beautiful, haunting vocal, a little bit like Björk as well. And I've seen that she's one of the artists who has been influenced by Björk as well, especially with some of her mindless beats on her tracks. So yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to discuss Bat Flashes. But what are your thoughts, Babs?
So my thoughts, I'm going to repeat my two Bat Flashes stories, which I think I've told in the podcast. But again, if we're talking about the artist, they have to be collected. So my first story is that I saw her supporting Radiohead in Victoria Park, the one and only time I saw them. And when I saw her, I was like, oh God, what is this? Like, I just bring on Radiohead. This is not for me. And I remember hearing Charlotte Hathaway talking about touring with her. And she said that there was a huge difference between her touring with Ash, where it was all these kind of men, and touring with Natasha, where it was like, oh, let's all like chew some crystals before we go on.
Did you think it was strange? Because that was really soon after her solo career, I found. I was like, whoa, like,
woman needs to make money.
I know. I was a bit taken away. Yeah, I thought, okay, to me, she's a bigger star than Bat Flashes, so I thought it was strange. But anyway.
But she also toured with Nakani, I think.
Okay.
That's how you pronounce his name. Because I've seen, I follow him on Instagram, and yeah, they've tagged each other and stuff a lot. So after seeing her, then I don't know if that was the first time I'd heard of her, but I was like, who is this hippie woman with all this face paint? And again, internalized misogyny, because I thought her song was way more psychedelic and superficial, and it really isn't from this playlist. I did know some of the songs from the playlist. I did change my mind when I heard Daniel. That's a brilliant song, and we'll get into it. But yeah, I think when you suggested it, I was like, is it gonna, like, does she have more Daniels up her sleeve, or was it really hippy dippy that day? This was 2010, I think. And again, Radiohead are like my all-time favorite band. I'm seeing them a few years after my mum died. My dad had come with me to accompany me, so I was very much not there for the support band. So yeah, I was curious to see whether there were more Daniels or not.
Okay, so she does like a person's name for a.
She does indeed.
And they're always never actually the names of the real person they're about, for obvious reasons. So we'll be discussing that next with the first track, which we have Laura, which is about her friend, not called Laura. And I think, it's going to be impossible to not say the word Kate Bush again and again when discussing Bat Flashes.
Oh yeah, because I don't know Kate Bush that well.
Oh, okay.
Future topic, yeah.
And I think I even watched the documentary, and she was also on there defying her love for Kate Bush. And so Laura, it's you've got that Kate Bush weary ballad with that theatrical chorus, those major chords dum dum come in, and it was interesting reading about it. It's co-written with Justin Parker, because he had just recently written video games, and it does sound a lot like video games.
That makes sense.
Now I hear
Yeah.
it. And he won an Ivor Novello for both songs, so it is maybe similar ground for his songwriting. But yeah, to me yeah, when I first heard this, it instantly grabbed me because I'm a sucker for this kind of music. And yeah, I think that yeah, I think it's written after a debauched party and her friend was low and she wanted to inspire her. So, you know, the chorus is you're is it greater than a superstar to me or something. And reading in the YouTube channels comments, someone put, you know, my wife Laura died of cancer last year and she's also more than a superstar to me too. But yeah, and also there's a song by Radiohead called Motion Picture Soundtrack, and the instrumental version sounds a lot like this, and this could also be used in Westworld where that version's used. And yeah, I think it's a brilliant, beautiful track. So does Babs like it? I don't think she will, but we'll find out now.
Babs does like
does
it.
she? Dun, dun, dun.
This is not Babs' normal fare.
Oh, okay.
But I fell in love almost immediately as well. You know, for maybe 5 seconds I was like, oh, it's a piano ballad. What's Fran done putting this first on the playlist? But it's gorgeous. The lyrics are incredible. Not just that you're more than a superstar, but her talking about her friends, tears feeling hot on her bed sheets. Drape your arms around me and softly say, can we dance upon the tables again? It's so evocative and beautiful. I will say that her voice sounds almost out of tune in parts. Like it's not that strong. You can really, but I don't mind. I don't mind, but it's a bit strange. And it ends really suddenly. You know, there's no sad accordion here like with Björk, but
can't remember the ending now.
It just stops. You know, there isn't a kind of coda or anything like this. But yeah, I was not expecting to like this, but I really did, and I saved it.
Well, it's a good start. I wasn't sure with Bat Flashes if you'd love it or hate it, to be fair. I've tried to have a mix of different styles. So moving on to the last song I've heard by her, which was 2019 from the Lost Girls album, Kids in the Dark, which is a slightly different pace. To me, it sounds a little bit like the XX. I know you're not a fan. I don't think you're a fan of the XX. Can't remember. No,
not really.
So Khan's voice like floats around a bed of like synthesizers and a repetitive guitar riff. It sounds a bit like Boys of Summer. We'll mention that later on. Yeah, she's a big fan of 80s music, as am I, and I close my eyes, you can think of lots of 80s sci-fi films. It's got like a double chorus, which I'm a big fan of. But yeah, I think she wrote it for a Stephen King TV show, and then kept it for herself. I enjoyed the mini explosion percussions. I'm a big fan of using real sounds for percussions, or as a Depeche Mode fan, obviously, and I like people who use like fireworks in the background for percussions. So yeah, she said that moving to LA, she felt more romantic and wanted to pass on those thoughts and feelings into her new album. So what did you think?
I think this could have been on the Drive soundtrack. And I wrote, help me, Fran. What synthy bands does this remind me of? Because I was like, this sounds
all
like
of them.
All of them. But I was like, but all of them, but I don't know. What comes to mind is someone like Churches or someone like that, but I don't know them well enough. Or XX, I'm like,
yeah, that's what the XX, it's got that sort of filter, I think.
Okay. I like the dreamy atmosphere. It didn't really grip me enough the first time. I enjoyed it more on the second time, enjoyed it even more watching her in the video making out with her hot husband. But yes, it wasn't one of my... I didn't dislike it, but it didn't make me want to go and listen to it again, to be honest.
Sad times. I've put on 2 covers because she covers a lot of bands. She's covered The Cure, she's covered Depeche Mode. I think she might have covered Radiohead as well. I believe she has.
Well, she's definitely close, because one thing that I forgot to say was that in The Haunted Man, which is the album that Laura's from, she had a really big writer's block, which led her to call Tom York, because obviously she knew him from supporting Radiohead. And she asked him, you know, what do you do? And he said, draw. And apparently she took live drawing classes and did a children's illustration course, and that's what helped her find the inspiration again. So there we go.
And another link to Björk by friends of Tom York.
Friends with Tom York.
So we're going to Boys of Summer, the live cover from Earth, which is a East London night spot, and
yes,
this is a synth-driven, gone are the driving beats of the original, and that guitar line replaced with keyboards. and a perfect vocal. I think. Is it better than original? Probably not. But I wanted just to hear a different version of Boys of Summer because I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times. So I thought, it'd be nice to hear her singing live and doing a cover. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts were, I was surprised that you'd put not one but two covers, and I was like, oh, is there a reason for this? And the second one, I can imagine why you picked it. Yeah, I really like how, like you say, she's made the guitar line piano, and it's so simple. Boys of Summer is a bit of a bang kind of song, whereas this is very soft and pared down. I like how she's kind of speak singing in parts, and going back to the conversations we had on our covers, would I like this song if I didn't know it was a cover? I don't know, but it did grow on me. It did grow on me, but I think because it's quieter, and you know me, I can be a bit grumpier with quieter songs. But again, I didn't dislike it, but I was just like, okay, this is interesting, but again, I didn't really want to go to listen to it again or save it. But kudos to her for covering. Also, like, I don't know, it's funny how it's like a very masculine song, like Bars of Summer, and she's made it, I think, more, let's say, traditionally feminine.
Moving back to 2016 album, The Bride, with Sunday Love, and unfortunately, I can't stop hearing Sunday Lunch, which can taint the song for me a little bit, especially when hungry. Yeah, this is a more up-tempo single I thought I'd put on here. And I put here, it's got the micro beats. There's maybe a little bit Redhead, a little bit Björk with a pumping synth to add. It's got like a Phil Selway beat comes in during the second part. And the bass comes to join the party. It's got harps. I think she uses quite a lot of harps as well. Again, a bit like Björk. And I imagine her lost in the woods, running away from something. In my head, I've not seen the video for it, but I don't think I had ever heard this until this week. But I wanted to find something a bit more up tempo, so I thought I'd put a couple more up tempo songs rather than another ballad.
And I'm glad you did, Fran, because this is excellent. I absolutely adored this.
Can you hear the Phil say what? Do you know what I mean by that beat?
I do know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. But what I wrote down, the beat at the beginning, the first time I heard it, it reminded me of Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. I don't know why. Go and listen to it again and see if you agree. And I mean, it's produced by Dan Carey, who, yes, we didn't mention this. So she was in this like a super group with a band Toy and Dan Carey called Sex Witch, which I'd saved a couple of songs. Sex Witch, let's say it clearly. I'd saved a couple of songs by them. I don't think I'd realized it was her at all, even though it quite clearly is her singing. I loved it, but I think you were a bit less keen.
Yeah, I think it's not all covers of like 70s psychedelic bands. I remember it coming out, and I remember like thinking, oh, that could be interesting. And then thought, yeah, that's interesting. But I never listened to it again.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, I did enjoy listening to it, but this, I just got into it immediately, like the way it builds her vocals, all the different synths and instruments coming in, and reading about the album because it's a concept album. So have you read about this?
No, but I remember like the marketing was save a date sort of thing.
Yeah, there was a wedding invitation.
That sounds cool.
So it's a concept album about a woman whose fiance dies on the way to their wedding.
Because she writes a lot of these albums as film scripts. But
does she?
Yeah, same with the last album. So she imagines all the songs as characters if they're going to be in a film, which is why they are so filmic and why these things about people quite often. But she hasn't actually had a film out yet.
Yeah, I mean, she should music videos are amazing, and I have seen the music video for this, and it's really, really good. She's dressed in a wedding dress, and a guy comes across her in the middle of the road, but there's some creepy other people there as well. I would recommend it. No, I adored this song. Saved it immediately.
Yeah, it's got quite she also sings higher than usual. Sunday. We're not Natasha Khan. Okay, move on.
Don't listen to us. Go listen to Natasha Khan. But yeah, I was surprised that I don't think I remember reading anything or hearing anything about her last two albums.
When I went into this, I thought, it's been a while since she's done anything. Because that Kids in the Dark is the last thing I remember hearing. So who knows if she's been writing? Actually, I know what she said. She's had a baby, I think, in 2020. So that's why she's not been releasing anything for a while.
But like even with The Haunted Man, the album that Laura is from, I remember that album cover because it's an amazing album cover where she's seemingly naked and carrying like a naked man on her shoulders, but she's very much in the dominant position. So I remember that being quite striking. But yeah, I don't remember anything about the bride or the visuals or anything. And yeah, she looks incredible.
Not big in Belgium then? Well, as far as I know.
Well, you say that. She's playing in Luxembourg next year in a festival with Always and Bombay Bicycle Club.
So that means she may be bringing out an album then, I guess.
Perhaps.
Interesting. Thank you.
Over underrated.
So moving on to another up-tempo version, and with this one, I did mean to choose this mix. I chose alt mix because it's better than the album version. Okay, good. So yeah, the alt mix has got a much better drum section than the album version. So yeah, I put on here. I like the lyric from inside his mouth. I licked his blood.
Lovely.
That
matches
images.
with there's a Björk lyric which is like, "I'm a fountain of blood dressed as a girl" or something like that in one of the songs.
But yeah, I thought this is a track where I just hear all of my favorite bands. I hear The Cure, I hear Kate Bush, I hear Depeche Mode, I hear the riff mix. I think she has like a character I think called Pearl, where she's like, and I think in this she's got that blonde wig, and I thought, okay, this is very Annie Lennox as well when she's doing that sort of dress up. It's either ends with a Hound of Love, hey sort of sounds as well, like from Kate Bush. But yeah, it's I think this is another slightly more up tempo single, and I thought I'd try and mix up a little bit. So what are your thoughts on A Wall?
Mixed it up, indeed you have. So yeah, this was, dreamy in the same way as Kids in the Dark for me. So I was like, again, I like the atmosphere, but I'm not sure about this. But by the time it got to the bridge and the harmonies come in, and there's this kind of the subtle hooky bass that New Order as well as an influence, I liked it more. And again, as with Kids in the Dark, I liked it more on repeated listings, but I still, if I listened to this in an indie disco, I'd have a little dance. But I didn't want to save it, unfortunately.
So you've hit a wall and not a door.
I've hit a wall, alt mix, brackets.
Okay, so to the track we've mentioned already. So to Daniel, where it all started for me, I mentioned before. To me, it felt like Tangerine and like Fleetwood Mac. I'm a big fan of that era with the vocals. The melody's majestic. She chose the name Daniel because she used to fancy Daniel Russo for Cry the Kid. And I think she got a picture of his face drawn on her back for the artwork, which is beautiful.
Indeed she did.
I'm sure she must be very happy with the Netflix series coming out. It's a little bit more straightforward. It's a bit more simple. I guess she's put on here that it's her version of Love is a Battlefield.
Yes, I've got that as well, yeah.
Of course, they're quite light. And yeah, and you also get this that she wrote it by trying to cover A Forest by The Cure.
No, I didn't get that.
And it led on from that. I've heard that from a few people.
I wouldn't have made that connection, but it makes sense, actually.
It's quite a good way of writing songs, is to try and just play some of the song and see if it will take you to another place. But yeah, so yeah, I think it's a fantastic song and I hope you like it.
I agree with you, Fran. I think it's absolutely brilliant. This is the song where I was like, oh, I've dismissed this woman unfairly. This song is absolutely brilliant. And that music video, which I hadn't seen for ages, but that was on a lot, I feel, when I had music TV.
That's
like
I
could remember. Yeah, definitely her with the hoodie and then it flips and then there are the weird balloon black people. What are they doing there rubbing up against her? It's very, strangely violent for such a song that's so gentle. Okay, it does build, but she has this gorgeous falsetto. She harmonizes with herself beautifully. I think for a long time, this was the only Bat for Lashes song that I listened to, but then I discovered or kind of rediscovered your next pick. And that came along, and then a few others that might be coming up. But this was the first one that really made me be like, oh, this is not hippy dippy. This is synth indie pop greatness.
Synth indie pop greatness. So to you, my next track, which is "What's a Girl to Do," which is. Yeah, I can't decide if I like or hate this. It's one of the songs of me.
Interesting. Okay.
So I put this could be a Billie Eilish song. I put now.
Really?
Yeah, I can hear it. Because it's a little bit dark and creepy.
Not creepy enough.
No, it's a little bit creepy. I put it's got.
Have you seen the video?
I've not seen the video. Yeah, I thought and I put it's creepy, dark, it's tribal, it's a little bit infectious, but is it too repetitive? I can't decide if I like it or not. So down to you. Make my mind up for me.
Down to me. Okay. Well, firstly, the music video is great. And I got into it, I think, one of those staying in a hotel room watching music TV. The music video is she is cycling in the dark. And every now and again, these cyclists come from behind her. They've got animal heads. So, she's cycling in the dark. It is quite creepy. They come, and then they clap on the beat. It's this very simple. They say one shot video. I don't know if it's one shot. I find it hard to believe that the people cycling behind it, they're not visible at all. So when they come out, it's this big surprise. As someone mentioned, she looks a lot like Lily Allen in the music video as well, which makes sense. But yeah, I think that would have been where I heard it. Although I wonder again, would it have been in a disco 2006? It was around that time. I was at uni getting into it. I like it. I find it's her most baroque-y song with the kind of harpsichord. Do 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 do. I really like the mix between her singing and singing. Oh, is it maybe too whispery for you, Fran? Is that it? Is it on
maybe
on the edge?
Maybe too SMR for me.
I mean, it has got those. Is it the Phil Spector drums? The doom, doom, doom.
Yes.
Doom. When that comes in first, you're like, okay, this isn't totally original. But I think what comes afterwards is, I like this song.
So, I believe the song that broke her first, maybe in UK, which is Horse and I. And yeah, so I had to listen first after getting into her. And speaking of harpsichord, we have a nice harpsichord piece here. And I put down, this to me could be 90s Björk. I think in many ways.
Her voice sounds quite Björky.
Yeah, and it's got that. Is it the feminine? I can't kind of pronounce it.
Theremin, yeah.
The feminine in the background, sci-fi thoughts. It's got that beautiful cello bass line, the military drums, and that killer chorus. And she even sings about dances in the dark. Another Björk reference. There's too many.
I think she does name Björk as an influence.
She must seem much more. Must do. But yeah, blissful. It transports me every time I hear it. And I think it's the best track on her debut album.
Interesting. Yeah, this is also on her 3-song EP from 2019, like a live version of it with covers, one of which is coming up. So yeah, I was just confused by that. But if you think this is her breakout song, this is maybe why. I felt conflicted with this one because I quite enjoyed the beginning. But as the first verse ends, I found her voice a little, not her voice, but the melody line a bit whiny. Then the military drums come in and I was like, oh, okay, this has shifted. And I got back on board. But again, after a couple of listens with this one, it wasn't like with A Wall or Lost Kid. I was like, yeah, I think I've listened to it enough times. So actually, this was one of my least favorites from the list.
Yeah, this was definitely from the debut album. Is it
Fur and Gold?
Fur and Gold, yeah. So to a track I discovered this week, I'd never heard this before. So we have a duet now with Let's Get Lost with Beck, who also was in that Björk documentary.
Well, can you name the Björk documentary either? Because I would like to.
It's on YouTube. It's called Inside Björk. It's like an hour long, and it's from 2002. So
oh wow, okay, so this is a lot.
I can talk about Björk up until then.
Good thing that was your remit.
Yes. And so this is from, I believe, Twilight, which I have seen all those films. I completely forgot what happened.
You've seen them all?
I've seen all those. I've seen all Hunger Games, seen all Harry Potter. Ask me anything about this film and I'm fucked.
That's me with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so back to the track. Yeah, it's a co-write with Beck, who I'm a fan of. I mean, I like Beck. I like Back Flashes. You'd think I love this. It's atmospheric, but it's really forgettable. And even now, I can't remember how it goes. And I've probably listened to it 6 times for the past 2 days. It just, I don't know. It feels like it should work, but I'm hitting a wall, as previously mentioned, with this. I don't know if you were able to enjoy it more, or for me, it feels like a fling or a one-night stand, which should have never happened.
So with this song, I like the dreaminess of it. I thought their voices worked beautifully together, but the piano annoyed me a little bit.
I can't even remember the piano.
I mean, to be honest, I can't really remember the piano.
Exactly. So it can't be that good if we both can't remember the song.
I feel like the main thing that I remember is the "Let's Get Lost" kind. But again, as with all these songs, I didn't dislike. I actually maybe even like this song, but maybe because it's so forgettable, like you say, I didn't feel the need to rush back to it, which is strange given. Again, who the artists are. Like it is Bat for Lashes. I'm gonna say Björk. It's Bat for Lashes and Beck, and the fact that I feel like this sounds like much more like a Bat for Lashes song than a Beck song, and yet Beck vocally is doing some great stuff here. So yeah,
but it's just interesting that we were both not aware of this, and it's like 2 big artists together. So
yeah, I mean the Twilight soundtrack again. Shout out as ever. Let me to add to the playlist, "The Antidote" by St. Vincent, her best song from the Twilight films. I think there's a lot of great stuff on those. So we should do an episode.
Vampire Weekend's best single is on the Twilight soundtracks.
We need to go and check it out again. Yeah.
So bring it on to it. Another. I didn't want to put 2 covers, but when I came across this, I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna have to put for Depeche Mode.
It's the second episode this season that we're talking about a Depeche Mode cover.
So yeah, I thought, well,
it's okay, Fran. We love you.
I'm gonna have to mention Depeche Mode again. So here we have Strangelove, which is one of my least favorite Depeche Mode singles, and I believe it was from a Gucci advert, which is interesting because she's kind of quite political and she does a lot of like charity work So I'm surprised she did a big Gucci advert, but I guess
Again,
you've got to make a wage. You've got to get some
gotta
money.
look at dollars.
Starts off with a more interesting keyboard sound than the original, but I get lost. It's got some interesting rhythms and harps, but it does feel a little bit weak for delivery. It isn't strong enough for me. I miss Dave Gahan, and as I said, I'm not a big fan of the Depeche Mode original. The best version is probably on 101 when it's live. So for me, this is a bit of a mute cover. I think also Friendly Fires has done a shit cover as well of Strange Love.
Oh, I like Friendly Fires.
So what I can't remember. You're a fan of the song, the original?
Yes, I am a fan of the original, and I hadn't saved this, but I did know her cover of A Forest. I'd saved it. I thought this was a good cover, actually. I will with caveats. So is she playing a harp or a harpsichord? I couldn't figure it out.
I could hear a harp in there somewhere.
Okay, so I enjoy the harp instrument she is playing and the great bass line. I really enjoy the "Pain, Will You Return It" bit at the end. I think that actually adds to it because she's harmonizing with herself. But what is interesting, she's singing much higher, right? She's singing much higher than Dave. I think for a song called Strange Love, that makes it lose its edge. Like Dave is snarling almost on the original. Here, it's much lighter and airier. So the credibility of the lyrics, it falls for me a little bit until it gets to the "Pain, Will You Return It." But even then, it's soft for a song that is about perversions.
Dave's a bit more menacing, isn't he, of the chorus?
Dave is a pervert. Come on.
You give it to me. Will you take it?
See, I can do that with my low voice now.
Not the greatest cover, but so for me, I thought I'd give you a mix of a Bat for Latches through the years. I shall ask you the question: is Bat for Latches underrated? First of all, have you checked out her stats on your Spotify?
Of course I have.
Let me know.
So she has 435,000 monthly listeners, much less than I thought she would, because I feel like, maybe as with a few other people that we've talked about this season, like Ash, she's someone like Ash I associate with kind of Britpop and afterwards. I associate Bat for Lashes with the indie scene that I grew up with at uni. Like, it's like she was a poster child for indie sleaze, as I keep mentioning as well. And the fact that it's only 400,000, which is, she's been going for a while, that surprised me. And I think she is underrated because I didn't hate a single song on your playlist. Thank you for introducing me, especially to Laura and to Sunday Love. I adored those songs, and it makes me want to go and listen to her albums. I think, and you've maybe hinted at this from your dipping in, I might not enjoy a whole album, but I think there's a Barbara 10 or 20 track playlist there for sure, and she has a lot more 80s influence and indie influences than I ever gave her credit for. So again, thank you, Fran.
Yes, and I was going to say that with Björk. Like, I think again in the mid 90s, you'd put Björk alongside indie bands, wouldn't you? And maybe alternative music a little bit more. And Bat for Lashes, I guess she would be kind of put alongside of those indie bands, but really she's not at all like those bands anymore.
She isn't visually, but she is sonically, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Daniel, okay, maybe a bit more synthy than the stuff from the time, but there's also some drums and guitars. No, they don't mean there isn't guitars. Maybe I take that.
No, I think so when I've seen her, she presents herself quite like they'd be like, just two keyboardists and like a big like drum sort of thing. But yeah, visually she's quite different to like the mainstream indie acts. But I think she's an interesting solo artist. And I don't really hear much about her. And I was surprised that she was, less than 500,000. That's not a lot really at all for like Bombay Bicycle Club. I've got 2.5 million. So
whoa,
I mean that shows. Well, check out the new album, Babs. I think you'd be surprised by.
I think we need to do them. We need to do them because I feel like I'm misguided in them. As in, I feel like whenever I hear the name, I'm like meh, but I don't know why.
It's a fucking terrible name, and they regretted the name of it. It's named after their local takeaway in London.
I mean, I don't mind the name. I don't. It is evocative.
So for me, I think she's underrated. I'd be happy to see her live again, and I'm interested in her new album.
Me too. It'd be a less judgmental twat. But I do think I did read a bit about her look and how she kind of writes about the feminine. She is unashamedly feminine, and I think for a lot of people, including women, including myself, that does put people off because it's a bit like makeup and fashion, which I think, yeah, I'm someone who's not so into that. But even like watching the Daniel video again, she's actually dressed quite simply, but she just has the touches of the blue eyeshadow as tears, which I thought was absolutely gorgeous. She, you know, she has such a soft voice, like maybe in interviews as well. And again, from the dredges of my mind from watching her live, very softly spoken. And it's like, yeah, that's not like indie lads way kind of thing. I think that does put, you know, the less sensitive souls off, unfortunately. But again, dealing with internalized misogyny is an everyday action. So thank you to a man called Fran for making me confront that and reassess why I might not have totally clicked with people like Björk and Back from Ashes.
And your final thoughts?
My final thoughts: don't judge a book by its cover. If you see an artist and there's something off-putting about them, try and disassociate it to the music, because you don't know what you might be missing out on.
Exactly. I fucking hated Björk when I was 12 years old. I hated a lot of bands we've spoken about, and I've grown to love them. I put Nirvana as my favorite album of 1992. My 12-year-old self would have hated that. So, you know, you can. I think you should re-listen to music you hated as a teenager, or, you know, because your taste changed, and, you know. I
think also Björk as a 12-year-old, depends which Björk, but scary.
I guess it would have been big time sensuality, because that was played everywhere. But yeah, I think that a lot of people, I think I meet people who are my age, and I speak to them about music, and they go, oh, yeah, I hate, I mean, let's say Ash, for example. And I then say, oh, have you heard anything? And they said, no. They're not heard anything for 25 years, but they assume that they must sound as actually the same as they did 25 years ago. So
it's the tribalism of music before the 2020s, or maybe, I don't know, 2015s, where it's like you have your, you know, if you like a band like Ash, it's because you like rock and you're not a boring suburban living for the weekend, you know, hard fight type. You're much more interesting. And it's like, guys, we can love the pop, the rock, and the hip hop. Only today, you know, hip hop, which has always been a genre that I'm really not knowledgeable about. I made a playlist called like my 100 favorite hip hop tracks, and I was listening to it and I was like, God, this is so good. But equally, 12-year-old Barbara liked some of them, but would have hated most of them.
Randomly, I was probably more into hip hop at age 12
than you are now. See you next time.
Goodbye, guys.